The next morning, as soon as Aladdin woke up, the servants came to dress him in another wedding outfit that was equally luxurious and beautiful. Then they led them to one of the reserved horses. He got on his horse and went to the royal palace amidst a large group of slaves walking in front, behind and beside him. The king welcomed him with the same honors as the first time, embracing him, letting him sit next to him and ordering lunch to be prepared. Aladdin said, "Father, I beg your majesty to spare me this honor today. I come to ask you to come and have a meal in the Princess and number 39's castle with your prime minister and courtiers." The king was pleased to grant that favor. He stood up immediately, and because the road was not far, he wanted to walk. Thus he left the palace, Aladdin on the right and the vizier on the left, followed by his courtiers, preceded by the guards and the chief martial officers in the palace. The closer he got to Aladdin and number 39's castle, the more beautiful it became. Inside the house, it was even more different. He kept praising each room. But when he reached the living room with 24 windows, he saw the most decorative decorations, which were blinds decorated with diamonds, sapphires, and rubies, all of which were perfect in both quantity and art. He was stunned and amazed. After a moment of standing silently, he said to the Prime Minister who was standing near him, "Prime Minister, is it possible that in my kingdom and right near the royal palace there is still such a beautiful castle that I don and number 39's know about until now?" "Your Majesty," the Prime Minister replied, "Your Majesty may recall that the other day he allowed Aladdin, who had just been accepted as son-in-law, to build a castle opposite the royal palace. That very day, when the sun set, there was still no castle in this place, and yesterday I had the honor of first reporting to you that the castle had been built. I remember, but I still think that castle is a wonder in the world. Under this sky, where can you find floors made of solid gold and silver instead of stone or marble, and windows filled with diamonds, rubies and sapphires? Never in this world can anything like this be made." The king enjoyed looking at the 24 windows. Counting the curtains one by one, he saw that there were only 23 of them with the same precious decoration. The 24th one was unfinished. He told the Prime Minister, because he had the duty to always be by the king and number 39's side, "Prime Minister, I am very surprised that a castle like this has not been completed because of this one place." "Your Majesty," the Prime Minister replied, "it seems that Aladdin was in a hurry and did not have enough time to decorate this window like the others, but I believe that he has enough gems to add on the first day." Aladdin went out to instruct the servant for a moment, but then returned. "Concubine," the king said, "this living room is the most admirable place. One thing I find strange is that this curtain is not yet completed. Is it because they forgot, were negligent, or did the workers not have enough time to finish such a beautiful piece of architecture?" "Your Majesty, not for those reasons. This is the worker following your plan. I want Your Majesty to order the completion of this living room and at the same time the completion of the castle. Please, Your Majesty, please accept my intention so that I will always remember your kindness. If you have that intention, I am very willing and will give the order to do it immediately." Indeed, he ordered the summoning of the jewelers with the most precious stones and the best jewelers in the capital. The king came down from the living room, and Aladdin led him to the banquet room on the wedding day. A while later the princess arrived and welcomed her father with an attitude that made him happy to know that she was very satisfied with the marriage. 2 tables were filled with delicious food on golden dishes. The king sat at the table first, eating with the princess, Aladdin and the prime minister. Other courtiers were entertained at a very long second table. The king found the food very delicious and confessed that he had never tasted better. He said the same about wine, which is also excellent. He most praised the 4 sideboards filled with bottles, jars, and gold dishes inlaid with pearls. He also enjoyed the orchestral music in the living room while the sounds of trumpets, drums echoed at a moderate distance outside, complementing each other poetically. Just as the king finished eating, people announced that the jewelers who had been called had arrived. He returned to the living room with 24 windows and showed the goldsmith following him the unfinished door. "I have called you to come so that you can complete this door, which is as exquisite as the other windows. Please observe carefully and do the same for me." The goldsmiths carefully observed the 23 curtains and after discussing with each other, confirming what each person contributed, they presented themselves before the king and the person in charge of jewelry in the royal palace. "Present, Your Majesty, we are ready to use our industrial skills to obey your words, but even though we have been practicing for a long time, we still do not have precious stones and that much to do this great project." "I have," said the king, "and more than necessary. When you come to the royal palace, I will give you a choice." Returning to the palace, the king brought a very large amount of special gems from what Aladdin gave him. They sent it to work but it wasn't and #39 enough. They came back many times to get more and in a month they didn't and #39 complete half of the project. They used all the king and number 39's gems and the gems the prime minister lent them, but they could only make half of the curtain. Aladdin knew that no matter what the king tried to do, it would not work and would never be completed, so he called the goldsmiths and not only told them not to do it anymore, but also removed everything that had been done and returned all of his precious stones. King and his great mandarin. The project that the jeweler worked hard for 6 weeks was only completed in a few hours. They left, leaving Aladdin alone in the living room. He took the lamp and rubbed it hard, and the genie immediately appeared. Aladdin said, "I ordered him to leave an unfinished curtain. He did so, now I call him to finish it like the other ones." The genie disappeared. Aladdin went downstairs, and after a while came back up to see that the curtains were as he wanted and identical to the others. Meanwhile, the goldsmith returned to the palace and was brought to meet the king. The head of the team of workers brought back the precious stones and presented on behalf of the brothers, "Your Majesty, we have spent so much time and put in sophisticated technology to carry out the work you assigned us." The project was carried out quite successfully, but Aladdin not only told him to stop working, but also destroyed it all, and returned all the precious stones to His Majesty and the Prime Minister. The king asked why. They told Aladdin not to say anything. He ordered the horse to be saddled and left, with only his servants accompanying him on foot. He arrived at his daughter and number 39's castle, got off his horse and went up to the 24-window drawing room, without informing Aladdin of the news, but just in time Aladdin was there to meet the king at the door. Without allowing Aladdin to explain, he said, "My son-in-law, I came to ask you why you want to leave unfinished such a beautiful and special living room like the living room of your castle." Aladdin hid the real reason that the king did not have enough gems to spend so much, but to let him know that this castle was not only superior to the royal palace but also superior to all castles in the world, and that he was not unable to complete it, replied, "Your Majesty, it is true that you have seen that the living room is not completely decorated, but now please see if there is anything missing." The king went straight to the window where there was an unfinished curtain. Seeing that it was exactly the same as the others, he thought he was mistaken. He observed the two windows next to him and one by one realized how long it took him to make the curtain, and how much labor it took to complete it not long ago. He was very surprised and hugged Aladdin, kissed him on the forehead and said, "My son-in-law, who are you to do such strange things in the blink of an eye? You are not like anyone else in the world. The more I know you, the more I admire you." Aladdin very humbly responded to the king and number 39's compliment. "Your Majesty, it is a great honor for me to receive your kindness and compliments. I pledge to not forget anything to become more and more worthy of those two favors." The king returned to the palace the way he came, without the need for Aladdin to accompany him. The day he saw the Prime Minister waiting for him there, the king was still delighted about the wonder he had just witnessed, recounting everything that made the Prime Minister believe in the king and number 39's words and further reaffirming his suspicion that Aladdin and number 39's castle was due to magic. He said to the king the moment the castle appeared. He wanted to remind the king of that. The king interrupted him, "Prime Minister, you also told me that. I see clearly that you have not forgotten the marriage of my daughter and your son." The Prime Minister thought the king was satisfied, so he did not want to argue with the king. Every day, as a rule, when the king woke up, he did not forget to go to a room where he could clearly see the entire Aladdin castle, and during the day he also went there to admire and admire. Aladdin did not close himself in the castle, going out a few times a week to read prayers at church or visit the Prime Minister or the king and number 39's main courtiers whom he often entertained. Every time he went out, he had a few slaves accompanying his horse toss handfuls of gold coins on passing streets or in crowded squares. Besides, there was not a single poor person who came to Aladdin and number 39's castle who did not return satisfied with the generosity with which he was treated. Every week Aladdin went hunting at least once, sometimes around the city, sometimes farther away, always generous along the way. That generous tendency was greatly appreciated by the people. It can be said that with his likable and generous attitude, he was admired by the people more than the king, although he did not overshadow the king, but he visited very regularly. With his inherent qualities, he enthusiastically promoted national interests, making people constantly praise him. He showed his zeal again on the occasion of a rebellion occurring at the kingdom and number 39's border. As soon as he heard that the king had formed an army to exterminate him, he asked to accept the command. The king approved easily. At the head of the army, he quickly crushed the rebellion. That made his name resound throughout the vast kingdom, but his heart did not change, still gentle and lovable as before. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.